All right, our next talk is titled Using the Data You Have to Get the Data You Want. It will be led by Ryan Key, the Director of Innovation AI at Walmart. Ryan has spent over a decade finding interesting technical solutions to complex consumer problems. His work has won numerous awards and appeared in several publications, including Fast Company and Wired. Ryan is currently the Senior Manager of Innovations for Artificial Intelligence at Walmart. Please join me in welcoming Ryan to the stage.
Give me one moment. Set this up. I am coming in a little different than everyone else. There it is. Look at that. Okay. Super happy to be here. Thanks for having me. So today, I'm going to talk about using the data we have to get the data we want. And that's not from a tech standpoint, but more from the process and how we do that. My name's Ryan Key. I work at a little startup you might have heard of. It's called Walmart. One day we're going to make it. I believe in us. I'm the Director of Innovation and AI. And so what that means is my team is really looking at, from the back door to the front door, how can we use data to drive a couple of things? That's availability. So how can we get the product that our customers want when they want it on the shelf? And also, how can we use data to enhance our associates' lives while they're at work? Working in emergent tech or data, there's something that I think a lot of us feel. Maybe it's not always said, and it's what Rosabeth Moss-Kanter described in Harvard Business Review is this tension between protecting revenue streams that are critical to current success and investing in what will be beneficial for future success, right? It's really hard. It's the Innovators Dilemma. It's what Clay Christensen has called it. Luckily, Walmart has been working to balance that for a while. The last few years, we've really been on a modernization hunt. We've been equipping our associates with handhelds, with apps that run on their own phones. We've been putting robots in our stores that scan the shelves. We've been putting robots in our stores that clean the floors. We've been equipping our back rooms with systems like what we have in our DCs that help us to more quickly and efficiently unload our trucks and sort things to where they need to go. But I acknowledge not every company has been investing in going down this path. Couchbase did a study a few years ago where they talked to a lot of CIOs and CTOs and CEOs, all the Cs. They talked to all the Cs, and they talked about data and how they're using data to revolutionize or change their business. And while 90% of them said they were talking about using data, it only resulted in a pretty small scale change. And only 4% claimed that it revolutionized their business. My favorite stat from this study is 84% of the people they talked to said that they either reduced scope or completely abandoned their projects due to legacy databases. None of you have legacy databases, right? None. We don't. No legacy. But that kind of hits it on the head, right? Like, big ideas falter when they're overwhelming to implement, like a legacy databases. It sounds really simple, and it is really simple. But when we have these big ideas, we have to keep so many things moving forward at the same time, right? And when you do that, we slow down. And we slow down. A couple of symptoms I tend to see are inspiration without execution. And what that means is we get into the what if. What if we did this? What if we did that? We could solve this problem that way. And you end up with a death by 1,000 decks. The flip side of that is we get really excited and we look at all the technology that exists out there and we want to do it all, right? And it ends up as experimentation without direction, and it's just shiny new toy syndrome, right? We're just throwing out tech demos. And where we really want to land is somewhere right in between, right on that line, because big bets have to be approached with a maker mindset. What we need to do is we need to be willing to get in and do what we're not comfortable with. For business people in here, you should be able to pull your own data. You should be able to analyze it. At least a first pass. For tech people in here, know the ROI on the features that you are developing, because that's going to help guide you as you move forward. We need people who are willing to get in the mud where they are uncomfortable and push things forward. So I'm going to walk you through a few of the guidelines that sort of ring true for me when I'm working on data projects. So rule 1, let go. Completely let go of what you think you have to have. So it's a human tendency to want to develop the perfect solution for every problem, right? But perfect solutions require perfect problems. And I don't know of a lot of perfect problems. Things are messy, data's noisy, processes that you design for your associates to follow probably aren't going to be followed. So you need to step back and let go of what your expectations are. Do any of you know the person on your team that's the that won't work person? You know them? Who sits back, arms crossed in those idea sessions, and they're like, nope, not going to work? If you don't know that person, you probably are that person. You got to be curious before critical, right? We need to be open to different ideas and even different solutions and different problems. So if the problem won't work, what will? What is the step that we can take towards that goal? For instance, let's say you're a great entrepreneur. You all look like great entrepreneurs. And you've ran the numbers, and you're ready to invest, and you're ready to build your dream. A banana stand. Because there's always money in a banana stand. So time goes on, business is booming, you're selling a bunch, you have a bunch of different suppliers, tons of employees, and you look at something, you look at the numbers, and it doesn't quite add up. You investigate, and you realize you're throwing away a lot of product. So how can you keep serving your customers the freshest bananas, only the freshest, and get rid of some of that waste? Being at an AI conference, I bet a fair number of you just now went to some sort of computer vision model, right? The rest of you, as soon as I said computer vision, started rolling your eyes. You got to step back and think, what is the basic building block? Computer vision probably isn't it, right? What can we do that may not address our end goal, but at least moves us in that direction? So thinking about the waste issue, maybe we could forecast that out. And to forecast, you just need to know when something's received, when something's sold at a base level. You need to know what you have. So instead of asking, how might we identify the bad fruit, maybe we simply ask, how do we know when it's thrown away? Complex problems require complex solutions. So make the problem simpler. Scale it back. And there are a ton of different ways that we could solve that, and it doesn't really matter which one you pick. But what is important is once you pick one, prove it quickly. Move fast on that. I often tell people that my favorite engineers are the laziest engineers. And it's because they have this uncanny ability to look at a problem and figure out what is going to cause them the most pain. And they're able to describe that and avoid it at all costs. And that's really important because at the beginning of a project, it is so important that you gather up that momentum. You pick off the small things and you move quickly. I used to work at a place called Wyden Kennedy. Wyden Kennedy, they put up this mural back in 2006, I think it was, and it's made out of little tiny thumbtacks. Says fail harder in the negative space. And they did it as a nod to the creative process, how the gold is often at that brink of failure, how you have to overshoot a few times in order to land it just right. And when I first came into the company, I thought it was ridiculous. Why would you want to fail? Nobody wants to fail. We want to succeed, right? But then thinking about how it applies to data, it makes perfect sense because failure is signal. And signal for us is everything. It's what we need. So how can you move faster to prove out your assumptions and get that signal? It's definitely breaking down your problems into smaller chunks. That's part of it. but it's also in how you execute. It's also in your tooling. I've worked with a lot of teams where not invented here is a absolute trap, right? Especially at Walmart scale. These tools don't scale for us. They don't fit our specific use case, so we are going to roll our own configuration dashboard or log collection, you name it. Use off-the-shelf tools when you can. The point is to move quickly. If you don't have to build it from scratch, don't build it from scratch. It's really, really important that you prove it out. And then, even if it's not the ideal solution, then you can iterate, right? You can build it up. You can progress it to where you actually want it to be. So often when I talk to teams about iterating, I get the agile spiel. You know, we plan a quarter in advance, we break up our sprints, then we go heads down and we crush those sprints, one after one after one. The thing is, you got to do that. You got to break it down. You gotta figure out your sprints, but as you plow through them, keep your chin up. Look for the changes. Abandon sprints if it makes sense. I've never worked on a project where I did not learn through the process, where the value or the perceived value might not have been there or might have changed. You need to reserve the right to get smarter. You need to move when it makes sense to move. Back in the 80s, a guy named Richard Foster introduced this idea that innovation is an S-curve. It's not linear. And he was talking about sort of step changes through an industry. So if you think about, let's say, the music industry, about their goal of delivering high-quality audio to consumers. Over time, we've had a bunch of step changes, all going towards the same goal: records, 8-tracks, cassettes, CDs, MP3s. And those are sort of how it breaks out right here. And while this is true for how an industry can progress, I think it's also a great example of how we should be treating our projects. So often, we step into a modeling, or a problem that requires modeling, right? And we have this long dead period of data cleansing, data collecting, and then we hockey stick value, right? We finally got the model right, production, go. When we could probably break it down like this and start capturing value earlier. Can you take that clean data? Can you build a deterministic model? It doesn't get us to where we want to be, but it gets us something right now, right? Can you take that same model and can you start developing features that feed it? Okay, now we have some modeled features. We have a deterministic model. We're a step closer. Then can you start to build your probabilistic model on top of that deterministic? Can you build proxies out of your deterministic? There are a lot of steps that we can take to move there, because what we want is just basic blocks of simple functionality. We want to simplify it and do it again and again and again. To do that, though, there's the narrowing down your problem. There is proving it quickly, building it quick, working on it over and over. But it requires you to have the right team for that, because not every team is currently equipped to do that. You really have to form your team and keep the problem space tight. Keep it close. When I talk to teams, I often find myself looking for a few different archetypes, a few different people that are kind of the right mix to pull together and really push a data project forward. The first type is what I call the scout. This is the person that's on the front lines. They've probably been around at your company for a long time. They know where all the bodies are buried, hopefully, figuratively speaking. They know where all the data is and who owns it and how to get access to it. They are the ones who help us identify what sources might be beneficial, right? How do we clean this data to make it useful? The second one in here is what I call the designer. So the designer, it's not UI, UX, anything like that, but it's somebody who can stare down a problem, frame it up, and identify what is the best approach for attacking that. They design proof of concepts that move us closer to where we want to be. They try a lot of different things. Because it's really, this is the lazy engineer through and through. Because it's really important that we have this person who can try not to build the dream solution, but build the solution that gets us just a step closer. The third is a scientist. This is the individual who takes the same amount of rigor as the others do, but towards collecting feedback. They build test plans. They love understanding what actions we're taking and what is the outcome of the actions. How can we set up an experiment that's pure, where we can look at our test set against what we're doing? This individual is really important for collecting error, right? Or proxies for error or success that will then be used to model and train in the future. And the last one, probably the most overlooked, I think, when we talk about tech and data, is the advocate, right? AI and machine learning, it's going to lead to some of the largest step changes that our associates will ever face in their careers. It's going to change the way they work and how they approach their work. So this person is really championing both the technology and how it applies to our associates, and also the associates and how they use the technology. They are a feedback cycle to our teams to understand how we should be approaching our associates from a technology standpoint. Now, the thing is, we could build the most perfect model and the most perfect solution that's returning gobs of value. But the thing is, if we don't get buy-in from our customers, our associates, we're never going to use it. We're never going to use it. It's going to fall apart. And so for us to move fast, we can't outsource our problem thinking. And that's not to say we shouldn't work with third-party companies. That's not to say that you shouldn't work with other teams within your organization. But if you do, bring them tight, bring them close. You need to get everyone underneath the same roof if you can. If you can't, Slack is your friend. You need to be constantly communicating, constantly sharing what is currently of value, the feedback from your associates, the feedback from your models. Everyone needs to have a shared understanding of the exact same goals that you're moving towards. It sounds really simple. It's often missed, but you really got to pull it together. And the last rule, make your own rules. I don't know the rules. These are what works for me. Just approach your business problems differently. Try to scale them down. Try to get to them quick. Try to build them up over time in small incremental chunks. Use the data that you have right now today to get to that data that you want to get to. Thanks.